Assessment, be it formal or informal, can be found at pivotal points on the journey of learning. Assessment is not a method of evaluation, it is a measurement of learning to see how much learning has or is taking place. Gould and Roffey-Berenson argue that assessment is a crucial aspect of the overall process of teaching and learning. When you think of the terms to assess or assessment, an archaic image of a teacher marking papers handed in for grading may be conjured up. Assessment is much more than this. This presentation examines and analyses a variety of assessment methods, tools that can be put in place by the teacher and the learner to empower and guide them on a journey of self-improvement towards their own personal goal. Assessment has, in the past, been guilty of batching people into certain groups, depending on their levels of achievement through assessment. I will argue that linear conformity within education and assessment does not lend itself well to learners achieving their full potential. Providing a learning environment that allows growth at a variety of stages and the ability to flourish can raise standards, improve employability, and empower people. Assessment of learning is usually a summative form of assessment. The results of assessment acknowledge that learning has taken place in a formal manner and results in some form of accreditation. One could argue that this stems from a teacher-led curriculum that is governed by external factors such as the institution and its league tables, employers, and the government. The assessment of learning is still widely used in practice within mainstream education. It provides evidence of achievement, with results becoming public and scrutinised by outside sources. This method leads to nationally recognised qualifications and recognition of a certain level of attainment. I would argue that this process does not measure how the learner got there, the effort put in, and where the learner wishes to go next. Assessment of learning assesses the learner's achievement against a certain set of standards or criteria. Assessment for learning uses tools to motivate and empower learners to improve. Assessment for learning is the process for seeking and interpreting evidence for use by learners and their teachers to decide where the learners are in their learning, where they need to go, and how best to get there. Moving on from assessment of learning, assessment for learning focuses on formative assessment. Learners understand exactly what they are to learn, what's expected of them, and receive guidance on how to improve. This is more of a constructivist process, where there is dialogue between the teacher and the learner. Moving from a culture of measuring achievement through competition and winners or losers, this looks at the journey of a learner raising their standards as well as confidence, motivation, and self-esteem. It's led by learners and where they are at any given point of their journey. Black and William, with their publication in 1998, Inside the Black Box, advocated a greater use of assessment for learning. With the black box, they demonstrated there was much emphasis with what was being inputted into the black box or the classroom and what was being outputted, yet not enough focus on what was actually happening inside it. Assessment, they argued, therefore needed to move from something that happens at the end of learning to something that is developed as a tool and catalyst for learning, advancing it, not just measuring it. Gould and Roffey-Berenson state that the four main strategies associated with assessment for learning are rich questioning, sharing learning goals, peer and self-assessment, and effective feedback. For feedback to be effective, it should be a two-way process. It should be honest and sincere, constructive and developmental, forward-looking, confidential, and offer choices and solutions. Hattie argues that feedback has more effect on achievement than any other factor. It's therefore paramount that effort should be praised as well as achievement. This, according to Dweck, will move the learner from a fixed mindset, where intelligence is fixed and any effort is seen as fruitless, to a growth mindset, where intelligence can be developed and effort is worthwhile. Feedback is one of the most powerful tools for improving learning and an integral part of assessment. Scales argues it's an essential element in effective communication between teachers and learners. When we get feedback, what does an A really mean compared to a B? How do we really know how well we've done? Do grades therefore stifle learning? It could be argued that grades can be seen as subjective and are necessary because teachers are forced to give them by an archaic system of measurement and achievement. For learning to be reflective and an ever-growing process, it can be argued that more of a narrative form of feedback is necessary to enable learners to understand where they are and how they can get to where they want to be. Petty's medal and mission model can be used as a method of giving feedback. Its structure allows the learner to reflect on how they can improve through feedback. The medal is what the learner has done well, and the mission is how things can be improved. This enables learners to reflect on what didn't go so well and creates a dialogue between teacher and learner about how things can be improved. For this to happen, the goals have to be clear. The assessment needs to be explained and illustrated. Learners need to complete a self-assessment where they can self-assess against set criteria. Feedback must be non-judgmental, and the feedback should be task-centered, not ego-centered. Assessment as learning promotes independent learning, where learners can reflect on who they are as learners and how they learn. This form of assessment incorporates peer and self-assessment. It empowers learners to take more responsibility for their learning and allow them to reflect on where they would like their learning to go next. It's imperative that learners feel safe in their learning environment to take risks and be honest about challenging themselves. Assessment for learning through self and peer assessments requires learners to reflect and think about their own goals for moving forward. With detailed comment and feedback, learners work much harder, and it creates a dialogue between teachers and learners, helping them to understand what they need to do next. There are 7 key principles that promote opportunity to succeed within forms of assessment. Validity. Does it actually assess what it's supposed to? Reliability. Is the assessment consistent? Sufficiency. Is there enough within the assessment? Authenticity. Is the assessment genuine? Is it the learner's own work? Currency. Is the type of assessment up to date? Utility. Is this an efficient method of assessment? And equity. Is the assessment fair and objective? As a teacher, it would be remiss to ignore any one of these principles. Mackin et al. Argue that while learners' progression is only discussed at the end of a course, the motivation and the potential to raise aspirations, development and reflection of assessment should be a two-way process throughout the learning. In conclusion, it can be seen that whilst assessment is a complex process that will always be a part of the political landscape in education, it is paramount that for learning to flourish and be an ongoing process, it should be proactive, not an afterthought.